Hi. It's all right, I'm not going to read all of this, it only gives me a note so I know which parts I've got to talk about. The initial impact of the diagnosis, when we went up to get it, we went past an A sign outside a paper shop and it said mental health. And we didn't like that word, and I still don't like that word. I'm not mental. I have a neurological problem. I don't have a mental problem. I talked to somebody in London and he said, I've got a brain problem. And it's how we look at it. We're not mental. It has to come under the Mental Act, I know, but we shouldn't be under it. We should be separated. But you go in and you get your diagnosis, and they talk in doctor's terms. And then, hello. And you don't know what they're on about. You need to be spoken to in a layman's terms. We wanted to know what it was, and obviously if I haven't got Alzheimer's, I've got PICS. But then there's no paperwork. There's nothing for us. There's nothing for me and my wife to read, or for my wife anyone for her to talk to. If we had cancer, we would have been taken into a room. There would have been a nurse there, print stuff off, talk to her. We had nothing. She works at the county hospital in Brighton, and she went back, worked next day, looked it all up because she didn't want to do it at home on the computer with me being there. And she knows what to expect. Me, I don't. I don't want to know. I want to know what I've got, but I don't want to know what's down the line. I don't know if that sounds silly to people, but I meet people who are further down the line with Alzheimer's, Lewy bodies, vascular. So I see what they're like, and I just think, well, that's how I'll be in a few years' time, or keep working like this, and I hope it'll be longer. Like Sue was saying earlier, 10, 12 years. You can only give a proximity, and he told me it was 2 to 10 years, and we went home, we sat down, we were working out, well, I've been doing this for 6 years, 5 years. Told us that, so now I'm on about 3 years remission, which is brilliant, isn't it? So it gives me a chance to come out and talk, but when you talk to professionals, and I'd done one with him in London 3 years ago, and everyone was nodding. They were all doctors and consultants and professionals, and they were nodding. So I turned around at the end of my speech and said, don't nod, just go out and do it. And half of them would go back and probably not do nothing. Some would probably look things up, some probably wouldn't. I was talking to a gentleman at a university up in Worcester, and they wanted to do a project with GPs on dementia. And they didn't do it because the GP's first question was, how much will I get paid? Now that's not right, is it? You shouldn't pay your GP to go and learn. They should come and listen, like you've come to, and you're a captive audience. But that's what they should do. They should come and they should listen. They shouldn't come and think of their pockets first. That's not right. But when you come out of being diagnosed, it's like a monkey off your back, because you're not lying to people. There is something sitting there. People say to me, how long have I had it? And I go, 56 years. And they go, well, what do you know, how long have you had it? And I'm like, 56 years. No, when were you diagnosed? Oh, 7 years ago. I was 49. But I believe it's been sitting there for 56 years. I think we've all born with a little spot somewhere in there which will explode at some time or decide to come out. Mine, I'd walked into a lamppost and I went to the eye hospital and they discovered something behind my eye which took me down the line to being diagnosed. But if I'd never walked into that lamppost, I'd still be driving lorries and have no difference. It's one of those things. It's something has to happen for it to come out. So then what do? Your life changes, and it changes dramatically, because at the stroke of a pen, I'm not working, there's £500 a week out your house. So the wife sat down and we went through things. I then sat down and cried and said to her, I've done 4 credit cards to the limit. on top of what our problem was, because that was part of the illness coming through, was spending and spending. Nothing to show for it. I could. It's like water, money going out of your hand. And she would say, "What have we got for it?" And I said, "Well, we've had 2, 3, 4 weekends in Belgium, which have been nice." Do you know what I mean? But where's the rest gone? And you can't tell her. I did go for a phase of having erotica, models, figurines, pictures. So when you're diagnosed, out they come, social. And they come out, and the woman sat there and she said to me, remember what I just said about what I was collecting? She said to me, 6 of us sat round a table, never heard of what you got, but I got the short straw to come and see her. So we had to give her paperwork, what my wife had printed off, to say this is what Graham's got. That was the first step, that's the first battle. When she left, she offered me Meals on Wheels and respite at 49. No, nothing else. And then, when I asked for my wife to be my carer, and you marry for life and death, because she was working, they wouldn't give it to me to start with. If she divorced me, moved over the road, they would have given it to me. But because she was working, living under the same roof, they wouldn't. 18 months it took to get her to be my carer. And we finally got it after I'd done a talk like this. But then the bloke came out, the head bloke, before we got it, and he said, I can't give it to you. Then he kept asking me, I couldn't quite understand him because he kept saying, I can't give it to you, but what you're asking me for. So he must have known. And then my wife said to him, well, going back to what I was collecting, can't you see what's in the house? Can't you see what's on the walls? Well, you could get a 16-year-old to come in and look after you. Now that's what people you were dealing with, and that's the people I then decided would be my enemies. Because I've got a wife and I've got the kids, but there's people who are on their own. What aren't they getting from these people? And that's when I started doing talk. I was asked to do one by a gentleman in Brighton, and it snowballed from there. So then the Alzheimer's asked if I'd be an ambassador. So I worked with them and then with the Hope Group, and you've all got a copy, I think, in your brochures from the Hope Group, but there's some coloured ones on the table. And this gives me a new lease of life. This is my life now. I've had 3 lives. I've had my working life, my life where I was in limbo before I was diagnosed, and this life where I can go out and I can talk to people and make people listen and understand what it's like to live with a dementia. It's not, I know there's people worse than me, but for people like me, it's not bad life. Have I got dementia? I look in the mirror, I see the same Graham I saw 10 years ago. I've done a talk and the wife came along in Arundel, and someone said to me, have you seen a difference? And I went, no, I said, I still see the same old me. They asked her and she said she sees 60% less. So then she was saying he doesn't do this, what he used to do. So then I started thinking, well, I'll write this down. So I'm now trying to get my 60% back because I'm trying to remember what she said I wasn't doing. So you do get crafty, and I think it's working. But when you come out, we come out and we went and had a drink and a meal because we're happy. You tell your company you're working for what you've got. They can understand it. They then sent me to the TNT. It was. They then sent me to their own doctor for another version, see if it was, and he told me before I sat down what I had. So then the kids, my boy knows more than I ever do. He went on the website, Dad, I know. Well, don't tell me anymore. I don't want to know. You can know it. The girls went into denial. They're now coming round 6 years later. It's taken them 4.5, 5 years to come round. But they now come round, which is nice. They understand it more. My grandsons, I've got two lovely grandsons. One's 2, and Kyle was born 6 months after I was diagnosed. And the people who know me know that he's the apple of my eye. And he's grown up with me, and he knows about it. And one of the best things was the other week, or the other month, I got a new phone. And he was 5 at the time, and he said to me, "I can do that for your granddad." And I went, no, let Granddad do it. And he went, "No, I can do it." I said, "You might know how to do it, but let me do it." In the end, I threw the box on the floor. And he went upstairs crying, and Nan had to go up to him and say, "Look, you understand Granddad, you know what's wrong with your Granddad, let him do it, because he might need to do it." So I was in the kitchen when he came down, and the first thing he said to me was, "Granddad, can you get a new brain?" So then I went out and cried in the toilet and left him in the kitchen. And then the other week, I was saying to someone earlier that I've been watching them brain programs on telly, and they've done an operation, and he loves watching them. And he said to me, "Can't they do that to you?" And I went, "No, it's for something different." I said, "They can't do it." "Yeah, but they do other things with them." And I said, "Yeah." I said, but he understands that you can change things, you can do this, but he doesn't understand that you can't change a brain with dementia. Well, hopefully you can grow up and change it, but that's what you have to put up with. And the first biggest thing you do is lose friends. We had the barbecue when I was diagnosed. 50 people came, 4 keep in touch. And 3 of them are girls I work with in the office. But yet 2 weeks before I was diagnosed, I was drinking with half of them. And they just get worried. It's ignorance. You've got to get into schools. This is the biggest thing now, getting into schools. And Alzheimer's with Angela Rippon are now getting into schools. But we've got to teach people young, like universities, people who go to university, when you have an open day, you don't have a dementia stall there, do you? You might have a medical stall, but there's nothing about dementia. And this is what we've got to do. We've got to push it in the right direction now. And that's what I hope to do. And apparently I've got 5 words of wisdom for people, and I've been trying to think, and I've been told to be diplomatic. One I would say is don't bury your head in the sands, because dementia is big and it's getting bigger. 2, treat the people as you would want to be treated, or you would want your family to be treated. Talk to people as a person, not as a medical person. I've been talking to nurses, and I spoke to a sister, and she stood round the bed, and the doctor was talking, and she had to stop him and say, "Excuse me, what are you saying?" Because the sister didn't understand what the doctor was saying. So what has the patient and the family got? It's got to be simple. We're not simple, but it's got to be simple for us to understand. And I know you don't get all the training. People who run homes, people on wards. I'm working with the Sussex County Hospital at the moment, and you've got someone talking later on from there. And for the last 3 Mondays, I've been talking about my life to nurses, doctors, from different departments, so they know in the hospital how to treat people, how to react to people, how to talk to people. And it's been great. I'm on a steering group for a dementia ward up there, which is lovely to be asked to do. Any more advice? Don't be afraid to ask anyone with dementia for advice. You might not like what's being told to you, and if you don't like it, you know you're doing it wrong. And that's all I'd like to say. Thank you.